pressing OK. Okay, I think we're live. So let me put this on mute on this side. Okay, and it just went out.
All right.
Let's do a quick check, guys, to make sure everyone can hear me and Adam. So can you hear me? Can you hear us? I see right now we got hi, and where's the webinar? That's from is that Leah Silva?
Leah Silva. Mosey.
Hey, hi, hey, how you doing, Mosey? Some names I slaughtered. Wasn't very good in language art and reading. Can you
All
hear
right.
me? Okay.
Let us know if you can hear both of us.
Mic check. So we should be good to go because we actually did this thing for about a good maybe hour and a half, about 3 or 4 hours ago.
It was
Hey,
long
Mosey.
enough ago.
Everybody. I know last time I got almost like kicked to the curb. Adam wasn't on the line and I was being fed to the lion.
Man,
I can't have it like last time.
you know I can't save you from that. I'm going to be just as bad, right? I'm not
No,
here to throw you any softballs, Damon.
No, I think because you're here tonight, it will be a little bit safer, so you won't go out and just
All
try
right.
just totally slaughter the only black guy on the call.
What?
I get flagged. Just go out there. He's being. Let's get somebody else out here.
Okay, when it's
Right.
just you and me, how are you the token black guy?
um, because 0 degrees of freedom. I'm the only one.
Yeah, well, I'm the token white guy then.
So I guess we're both the tokens tonight.
Well, instead of some tokens, how about some coins? What's up with LPC?
Oh, yeah, I'll be the token coin. I'll be the coin guy tonight. Yes. Okay, Bill, you can hear us? Great. So it looks like we have 13 folks, well, 12 folks in so far. If you get some time, folks, just go ahead and yeah, tell Damon about the onion.
It's an inside joke. It's yeah.
Okay, guys, when you get a chance, go ahead and either click the thumbs up, click the subscribe, tick the little bell so we can get the party started. I'll go ahead and try to give you guys an overview of the night, and this is the first kickoff that we've had for the weekend, started on Fridays. So we're switching up on the times because I know like during the middle of the week it may be rough for this me or Adam both to actually do the webinar. So we're switching up just a tad bit. I think Fridays it's a pretty good time. Friday evening is a pretty good time. So we'll see how it goes. If things go out pretty well, we may stick to this time, or we may try something different because this is the update and the move into the 100 Partners Intro program. And for the first program tonight, after the update, we're just going to move into Adam's company, which is that we have is that WynnqTeq? Yeah, I think I spelled that wrong in the comment section, not the comment section, but in the intro section. I do apologize for that. I'm
Not a
dyslexic.
problem.
So I'll correct it in a few. So let's do this. And I'll be monitoring that server for queues as well. Okay. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and get this started. So we only have 15 folks who are watching so far. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to just give a brief LightPay coin and Logis coin update. And I think you guys know the market where it is right now. And after we talk about just the market ever so briefly, then we'll move into the fake stakes vulnerability, which has kind of thrown all of us like off track for a bit internally. And it surfaces some issues that we definitely need to address in the Um, yeah, yeah. First question is wallet upgrade. Yeah, in the Discord. That's yeah, and that deals with the fake stakes vulnerability. So we'll definitely discuss that as we move along. Then we talk about the ATM, the hardware software updates, Xchainz, then LPC, and then we'll move into WynnqTeq, like the 100 partners. So, so without any further ado, guys, let's go ahead and just give an update for the LPC and LGS. Uh, just going to masternodes online, we can basically see that for the most part, um, we lost some masternodes. We had 3,486 during the transition, and maybe some folks hadn't been able to transition over due to the wallet update. We're sitting over a little over $1 million in the market cap, almost like 1.1 million. That's down from, I think, the last webinar we had. We were at 1.2 million. So it's the case that we're seeing a couple of things happen. Just the trend with the overall market trending down still. I think it's at 113, 114 billion at this point, and we're sitting at 1.2 million with 3,486 master nodes. Going all over to the LPC part, they went to from LPC to LGS. Excuse me. Um, with LGS, 1,487 master nodes with a market cap almost $500,000. It's the case that we're still trending downward in both projects, but that's also reflective of the overall market as well. But it's due in part, we had at the microeconomic level, like what's happening at the project level itself, we had a few things that took place in the overall national space. Let's do this. Fake states vulnerability. And just do a quick search here. And this came out, fake stakes, CCN. So this article came out, I think it was on the 27th. We had another one come out like last week that it was some researchers at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. They identified about 25, 26 projects that were in the top 200. And then they were able to successfully attack a few of those projects using this fake stakes vulnerability. So, and you can read through all of the details of it. But for the most part, it actually brought out an issue within the proof of stake masternode coins in particular. You can read about the details here in this particular article. I'll put it down in the description below after the call. So it was one of the things where the whole entire masternode community was, particularly the masternodes going through with using a proof of stake algo. I know Dash is a proof of work masternode, so it's the case it was not vulnerable to the proof of stake issue, because we use actually a proof of stake consensus versus Dash that uses a proof of work algo. So a lot of the projects across the masternode space, they were working to get through the fix or working to create a fix for the project, for their respective projects. We went through an issue where we were taken off, well, not taken off, but we were disabled on, I think it was CryptoBridge for the vulnerability. That was the same for a lot of other projects as well, including the base project from which a lot of the masternode proof of stake coins fork, and that was Pivot. So one of the things where the team led by the development team, led by Vlad and iCoinMan, they began to research some fixes in the area for the vulnerability. PivX came out with a fix, an attempted fix, but it's the case that, from what I understand, and I could be totally wrong on this, but you check, but this is from what I understand, the fix that was put in place for a variety of different projects and subsequently pushed out, um, there were different opinions about whether or not it was in fact a valid patch for the code. So it's one of the things where even I think with the PIVX um, fix that was put in place, one of the solutions involved like increasing the percentage of the masternode state in order to reduce the likelihood of it occurring. But uh, PIVX implemented that, and subsequently the team led by Vlad and iCoinMan implemented that as well. But when we go to, let's do this, github.com. But once we went to the GitHub repository, and obviously, you know, you guys, when you get a chance, you all can go to the repository anytime you see that there are issues with the code base. Anytime you have issues, anyone can create an issue. Anyone can create an issue and identify the issue appropriately. So, like for instance, there was one particular issue here when you look at the fake stakes vulnerability that was put in place. An individual by the name of Moto Acidic out of Michigan actually.
That's not his real name.
Yeah. Actually, we don't know his real name, but it's the case that that's his tag. So we just call him Moto Acidic, but it's T Finch. I'm not quite sure if that's his real name or not, but he's located in Michigan, a Windows system admin, and is a pro developer in the sense that, you know, in terms of the amount of code that he submitted to various code bases around GitHub, you get a tag given the amount of pushes and that you do not only to public projects but also to private projects as well. So he actually identified actually a couple of issues in the code base and say, well, in the fix that was proposed, they identified several places in the code base where the issue was not necessarily fixed, and those were like around line 2,536. You can go to it and see it yourself. And then there was also line 2,304. But it's in the cases that, hey, we didn't apply any of the code. So if you're able to figure it out, there are a few projects that have already fixed the issue. And that was actually another comment by I think a mathematics teacher out of Amsterdam, who's also in a good comment. They referenced the issue.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Yeah, I attempted to take the advice that was given by those, and I went and I pulled the code base myself and actually made some adjustments consistent with some of not only one of the proposed solutions that was presented, but also a couple others in the community I looked over, and they proposed to fix the solution in one of the blocks, being able to lock down the issue whereby the fake stake attack could not happen. So what I ended up doing is I identified the places where someone from I'm not sure if they're in the community or not, but someone who did review our code identified where the issues were and how we could potentially patch the issues. And then I submitted that first one as a proposed fix, a proposed solution to fake stake issue number 12, going back to that issue pointed out earlier. So after that initial review, based upon the first push that was made by Vlad and iCoinMan within a week's time, and we have to give some credit to the community, the Masternode community itself, in that everyone attempted to address the issue pretty quickly in terms of solution. But it was the case that some solutions weren't necessarily the ideal solution, and there still at this point is no official fix. There is no official fix that's in place, but the solutions that I was able to review seems to be reasonable in terms of its implementation. So I actually submitted my first pull request, and then actually the reviewer came in and said from excuse me, from the old code base that was pushed, the first fix that was pushed, and say, hey, the parent fix on LGS in addition to LPC, there was no like logical explanation as to how it is a fix, but more so like a um, more a band-aid issue, but not necessarily doesn't resolve the problem at all. And FTech also, well, motoacidic or T Finch also agreed as well. Um, so I went back to go. I went to the drawing board, and when they actually made the argument on the first proposed pitch that a fix to put in place, they said I was missing some code as well. They say I left out a key part. So I went humble and I asked the guys, hey, if you guys are recognizing that there is an issue, where we recommend that you give us some suggestions. So I asked for it, and then they pointed explicitly to the accept block function that's within the main file of the project. So I went to this particular project and I took a look at it in terms of what this particular coder did. So it really identified two vulnerabilities. Say I can't believe it's not state attack. So just to read through it here, it was introduced while merging upstream headers first featured into the proof of stake fork. It fills the victim's node memory until resources are exhausted and node may crash due to out of memory condition. Say this code base is not affected by it. And then vulnerability two, it is called spent stake attack, which is like the fake stakes. It was discovered while investigating vulnerability one. It works because block verification ensures that the coin exists, but not that it is unspent. After forking of the main chain, the coin stake transaction is still validated against the main chain transaction DB. It allows to generate arbitrary amounts of apparent stake to inject it into the victim's node. The code base is fixed with this particular commit. So in looking through the code base, basically they initialized and then subsequently declared some variables. And then they're actually erasing out or deleting where that fake transaction or fake stakes can be actually put in place, but they actually deleted where it could possibly be inserted within the main chain. So, and then they're adding new entries and deleting old entries here. So it made sense. And this is within the accept block block function that's within the main.ccp file. So it's the case that they actually implemented a solution here, and you can walk through the logic if you're familiar with C++. I'm not as strong in C++, admittedly, here, but it was a case I know enough to be able to work through the logic, and it made sense. So we did that I did that subsequent adjustment within the accept block function to mitigate the fake stake attack. And then what I did after committing it, I submitted it to the team for review, because the process is, because Vlad is the main dev, I'm an iCoin man, he and iCoin man do most of the development work, and anyone looking to make adjustments to the code will have to do a pull request, and that includes me. I'm not necessarily the main dev, so yes. It's the case that it's something that the review team,
I'm live
Vlad
on TV.
and iCoin man make the review.
I'm live on TV.
So
just be quiet.
I submitted it to the team. They said they would review it, but it was the case as soon as I submitted it here for the pull request, making this adjustment, T Finch or motoacidic came back and reviewed that code and said, hey, it looks good to me. And I said, thanks for your help. And I said, we'll close it once it's pushed. But at this point in time, it looks as if the pull request is still out, and it hasn't been tested just yet, even though I submitted it to Vlad and iCoin man for the subsequent review and testing of this particular code. So it's just sitting here waiting for a pull request. So we had 2 commits. Go ahead.
So just to sum that up, just so to make sure that I understand correctly everything here. So you went through the code that's currently in the code base right now. That was the fix that the other developers released. You went through that code with other developers in the crypto development industry, and they worked with you on a fix, and you actually took the time to code up the fix yourself, and you put in a pull request to the other developers on LPC, which means that you're requesting for them to pull your changes into their code base. You're just waiting for them to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
So what happened is there were some other individuals outside of the community who's pretty good in terms of what reviewing code, identifying in different various projects. They're cryptocurrency advocates. So it's the case that I can review if it looks like there's a potential exploit that's being introduced. So the fix that was initially put in place by our team was an issue, was a roundabout way, but didn't necessarily totally fix the problem. So there were two members within the cryptocurrency community that identified ways in which the fix could be put in place. And I reviewed that code and then subsequently implemented the code and then made a pull request. So after that, it's still sitting. After that first pull request I put in, then the team, or excuse me, not the team, but the external cryptocurrency advocates reviewed that code and say, hey, I'm missing some spots. So what I did, I asked for some recommendations. Let's point that out. And then they actually identified where I could make some of those adjustments. So I did that and subsequently say, hey, it looks good. The people within the cryptocurrency advocates came in, reviewed what I had put in the second pull request and said, hey, it's actually good in their review. So now it's at the point where Vlad and the iCoin man, I submitted to them for review because I actually think, where is it? Yeah, made them for the reviewers for the particular project. But it's the case that the code necessarily hadn't gone through that process of integration just yet. So
okay, so we have everything that we need to continue to make sure that everything's good to go and safe. We're just waiting on it to actually be implemented. Now, do we have any idea why the other devs haven't done it yet?
From my understanding, and then having a conversation with Vlad himself, after I submitted the pull request, and then he asked me and said, "Oh, is this an official fix?" And I said, "Well, at this point, there is no official fix anywhere across the cryptocurrency space. But from my review of the code and from other cryptocurrency advocates in the space, their review of the code and what we've done." They said it looks good. I would recommend, and I recommend to pull the code. I actually just do dev data, switch to my branch, pull it to their local environment, go in and actually connect to our test net, run it, see if it works like I did, and then subsequently, if it works, integrate it into production. But that hasn't happened. So right now, we're still waiting for them to do that integration.
Okay. Do you what's next on the docket? Because I think the folks are looking to get in to dig deep into that open wound.
Yeah. So at this point, I would encourage you all to have conversations with both iCoin Man and with Vlad to communicate, hey, have you guys tested the pull? Have you tested what's on the branch of LPC? What I submitted? So that's probably the only thing at this point. I know, hey, Nicolette, I know she just adds, is it possible to get Vlad's password on GitHub to expedite the process? I could ask. As a matter of fact, since I've seen it here, I'll do this right here. I'm gonna pull up.
Watching it live.
Have you finished? Let's see, reviewed.
We can't see what you're typing if you think that we can.
The pull request. Pull request. Okay, and not necessarily let you guys all into the insights, but actually here, let me see if I can. I can't. Let me load this screen for me. Pull request. So I did just send a note uh, to Vlad here and in our conversation. And yes, I just asked, basically reviewed and tested the pull request. So that's what I just did to get an update in terms of where we are. So that's all that I can give, not necessarily being a senior dev on the team or the lead dev as in Vlad. All I can do is just make the recommendations, follow what's been given out based on the best knowledge that I know. And the best knowledge that I know at this point is that there are cryptocurrency advocates in the community that have recognized that the patch that was put in place was not necessarily one that completely solved the problem in their opinion. They recommended some other projects that had fixed the issue to their resolution based on their experience in the space. I did a I actually pulled the code, created a branch, made the adjustments as they suggested, and then made a pull request for that to be integrated into the code base. And that hasn't been done just yet. So at this point, that's all that I can do on my side. But I would strongly encourage everyone here to contact Vlad or iCoinMan to ask them if they've reviewed and tested the pull request as I just did.
And their contact information, or they can be contacted via Discord. They're in both LGS and LPC chat rooms. So
yes, and you can also make your pull request. You could also do an issue code here within GitHub. You can go to our LPC Light Bitcoin project and create a new issue, or make comments on the current issue that's open, because this issue hasn't been open just yet. So anyone else can add their comments in terms of updating this code.
okay, so there's a lot of questions going around about the efficacy of our current direction. And people currently, so there's a couple questions regarding the actual LPC team. So as far as I understand it, it's yourself, Vlad, this iCoin man, and Colin. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
do you, and there's Brenimir, no, he's still involved as well.
So if with this proposed fix that you've looked into yourself, and with all of the drama that's going on in the Discord, if nothing happens, what's your plan? I mean, if we don't get more a safer fix for the fake stake, what do we as a community do to make sure that we're protected?
Sure, there's several options in place. Some of them are extreme. Some of them are not as extreme. As I did mention earlier, just urging some of the team members to review and test the proposed solution. So that's on the lighter side. On one of the more extreme examples is actually going through a process of saying, okay, is this something that we're willing to, I don't want to say totally, well, let me just put it out there on the extreme end, totally abandon the project. So is it the case that you would abandon the project based upon, say, code not being reviewed, there potentially being issues with a vulnerability that's still in place? It's a valid concern and potentially a solution that could be put in place. But then if you're abandoning the project, what's the alternative? Could we fork? Could we do something else? That's a possibility. So it's at this point, I would strongly urge community involvement, because I'm guys, I'm totally behind you. I don't want to be in a position where you're putting your investments at waste. But at the same time, it's the case that people who are on the team would need to have some dedicated effort in maintaining a project. And I do think patching of fixing a vulnerability based on information or even testing, because perhaps this solution may not be the official solution that totally fixes the problem. Because as you notice if you go back and read the original article that was done by the decentralized lab at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, they were able to successfully conduct the attack on several projects, but not all of the projects that they listed. So what concerns me is that it's not 100% reproducible. So and typically when you would make fixes to code, you need to be able to consistently reproduce an error or reproduce some vulnerability. So that was like one threshold for me as both a coder and a reviewer of code on like how reproducible is the problem. So that's one thing we would just need to reproduce it, and at the same time fix it, and attempt to reproduce after the fix is in place. So because that proposed fake state attack was partially successful on some projects, but not all, it's the case that it's something that's not totally reproducible. And that was all script. I can see a huge dump coming. It's a possibility. But at the same time, you need to have some liquidity in the space to make that happen. So it is bad news. So and I see there's Chris Zarin's on the line. Yeah, Chris. So it's something that we are attempting to address, and that's why it's actually the first thing that we're discussing here. So the main thing that I would just strongly urge you guys to do is just encourage the team members, Vlad, Icon Man, to actually do the pull request and actually do the test. So that's the only way that I see at this point. And if they're unable to respond and say, "Hey, we pulled it down. We don't see that that it fixes the problem," then we would need to consider other alternatives.
Right. So
and that's just being upfront. We have the good,
right.
bad, and ugly. So I just want to tell you how I see it, guys.
Absolutely. And there's no reason to see this as bad news. I mean, I'm not Mr. Positivity or anything, but I mean, we are at a turning point in the entire crypto sphere. So like, we're all working on this together, right? So people have been asking about forking and everything, and just as a hypothetical, with all the partnerships, because we know that LPC is solid tech, but we also know that it's not special tech. It's open source. Anybody can fork LPC and make their own coin. So what makes LPC special is the partnerships that we have, and frankly speaking, you, Damon. So the code base is important because without that we lose our connections with all these routes that we've already created. So as a community, if we decide that we want one direction, how do we resolve that as a community with the team if the team is not open to hearing the community? Because we care about the project and we don't want to just sell and move to something else. We want to see this succeed. So how can we help push our vision along with your vision, Damon?
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, just being proactive in terms of your calls for some of the things earlier. Like say, for instance, with this issue code, I think it should be the case. We only have 5 comments here. I think there should be a lot more. Being able to test some solutions that are out, being proactive in communicating that and just being transparent and just being open. If the team's saying, if it comes back and after a review by Vlad and Icon Man say, okay, we did not implement the fix for the following reasons, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Then it's the case that there's a rationale for not doing it. But then if there's no update or if there's no rationale for it and they don't have a reason, then you have to think about that for a minute as a community. Is it really worth your time where um, members aren't being as open and transparent about the reason for doing certain things? I know we have a lot of questions here in the chat, and I'll definitely get to them in a second. From everything from the ATMs to what we're doing in the next 3 months or so. But I just wanted to be able to make this crystal clear. Voice your concerns. Don't necessarily. I don't think it should be in a position where you're actually calling people, cursing them, calling everything under the sun except a son or a daughter of God. But just be at the position where still keep it professional, but then stay where you're communicating on a regular basis and demanding an answer. So if it's the point where we should have a webinar with the entire team where all the team members are on it, like you've been very like proactive in starting to join the calls, and I do appreciate that. Just me not necessarily being the only sole face for LPC LGS, and I do think there should be more members of the community who are actually on the calls. So
let me just say, Damon, I'm gonna interrupt you. This isn't all just me being a nice guy. I'm internet famous now. Come on.
I totally get it. I totally get it. So and I do appreciate it, because I think I'm more serious most of the time, and I think you are. I think you bring a certain amount of cheer and charisma to the game as well. So that's where I am at this point. Let me answer this question, but I would strongly encourage you guys, go into the GitHub, go into the comments, make the comments, say, hey, when has this been tested? Has this been tested? Has this been implemented? So let's go back and I'll address some questions, but just definitely be proactive and make your concerns known. And let's address this. Let's address it every single week. On the next call, we'll give an update, see what the team has done. Let's see what the entire community has done. What other solutions are out? When we talk about entire community, what has the Mastodon community itself done to fix the particular issue? Mm-hmm. In my opinion, having PivX just go ahead and write some code to increase the amount of the rewards. No, I think that's not the most elegant solution, but yet is the one that most people, including our team, end up going with. So that's something that we should just be proactive in seeing what works, what doesn't work, because that's how we solve it at the end of the day. Because there's no one official company that makes a position on it, but we have to reach consensus. So that's the thing here, and I think that's what we're struggling with, reaching consensus as humans in determining what is the most efficient solution. I think it stems in part from being able to successfully replicate the attack, because that's a part of it. It has to be reproducible. And then once a fix is in place, you have to attempt to reintroduce that or reproduce that particular attack. But then that's something they could do it sometimes, and then they're off on the other times, in not being able to successfully attack 100% of the proof of stake projects that have been in implementation. So it's going to be a work in progress. And then, like I said, within our community, just encourage some of our developers to just look at some of the proposals that are out. And right now, the two pull requests that I put in place, they hadn't been necessarily tested or properly vetted, in my opinion. So that's where we stand, guys.
So it's being worked on, guys. So don't think that nobody's doing anything, because no matter what, Damon, even though he doesn't have the passwords to the GitHub, he's still pulling his weight, making sure that stuff gets done. So there's a couple questions regarding LGS, the startup, Vlad, and so forth. Do you want to get into that now?
Sure. No, I definitely want to answer all the questions, because we got a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. But I want to answer them, but get them out one at a time.
People are hungry for answers.
Sure. And let me just say up front, I don't know all the answers, but I'll try my best to get answers to them.
All right, so
you keep me accountable on my answers.
I'm trying, yeah. So first off, I wanted to touch on two things. Firstly, not that there's been any doubts by anyone, but I want to just get you on paper, saying that we do communicate, and while I'm not your voice in the chat room, like, I don't BS, right? So my word can be assumed to be valid, essentially.
Sure. So you're like an unbiased, like second party, if you want to consider that, or a third party, if you want to.
Okay.
Folks in the community want to consider that. So I don't consider you like as my headpiece or mouthpiece in the community.
And I don't want that. I use my own voice. Thank you.
And me too. And like I said, guys, you can send me questions in the chat. I come on periodically because I'm either constantly out attempting to make partnerships, jumping on phone calls, doing some coding, building relationships, because this is not a part-time task. So it's something that requires proper management, and I spend some time on the Discord. I come on every day, but it's not the case that I'm on 4 to 5 hours today just to chat and phone calls or chat and answer all of your questions. But I attempt to answer the questions that are in my inbox. If it's just a short, hey, let's jump on a quick call, or hey, let's do a quick WebEx, or I'll make a reply to something. But it's the case, like, I can't spend all of my time replying to all the questions, but I'll answer the ones that I have on the various channels. So I check Twitter every day, LinkedIn every day, Discord every day. So you can get, I'm accessible.
Right, and I'm accessible as well, and I do have the ability to answer questions and to ask questions of Damon as he's available. So I can buffer data between the community and you, Damon.
Sure.
So the second thing I wanted to touch on, I actually promised one of the guys in the community that I'd talk about PolisPay. I'm not 100% sure on what it is, but it's a crypto project that has to do with like debit card payments using crypto. So a few people actually have brought it up and asked if we were interested in partnering with them. So I guess the overall question is, how are we approaching partnerships moving forward, and how soon are you looking to make new partnerships?
As we announced at the beginning of the year, short answer, we're always open to partnerships. So like my daddy told me a long time ago, the only thing you turn down is your collar. At the beginning of this year, we did announce the 100 Partners programs, where we're looking for 100 partners to integrate in some way, either our technology or what technology that they have. If some project is high speed, low drag on, for instance, on smart contracts, why should we go ahead and build an infrastructure for smart contracts when there's an entity that already does that? So I had a conversation today, as a matter of fact, with a cryptocurrency project that's doing just that. They are building an infrastructure, or they've built an infrastructure where you can create smart contracts through a visual interface. So you don't have to know anything about code, but yet it's the case that you can create a graphic, kind of like Visio, if any of you have used Visio before, and you create like a process map. Say again?
Flowcharts.
Yes, and you can create the smart contract by creating your process flows within a Visio-like interface. So that's just one partnership that I had today with actually another UCF graduate, because he was interested in terms of what we were doing, and we've open to stay in touch as well. There's a second project there's Quantus Network. They just did a I think it was a fork. Yeah, they just did a fork maybe like a month or 2 months ago. And they're interested in some of the infrastructure that we built, particularly as we talked about Xchainz and being able to place documents on chain. We'll talk about that. And they're interested in that service as well, being placed on the platform of Xchainz and being able to share in that. So there are various partnerships at various levels of development. Obviously, we have to qualify the folks to say, okay, are they serious? Are they going to look to move forward? Do they have the capabilities to like sustain the development or the effort once it's created? And that's what we're doing in the 100 Partners program, and we're getting it started. So that's one of the things that where no, we're not just pushing off partnerships, and no, we're not closed off to say we're not communicating. Because when I was growing up, I'm gonna give you a short story. When I was a kid, and it was cold during the wintertime. It's Florida. Say if it's around say 40, even
Damon, do
maybe
you know where I live?
yeah, you live in New York.
I don't want to hear it.
But it's a short story, man. I would come outside and it's 40 degrees outside, and basically I would go outside as a young kid to do something. It was cold, and the cats and dogs they chase each other. But early one morning, I came outside, and the cats and dogs they were one cat, one dog. They were actually snuggled up together. So even though they chase each other during the dog would chase the cat during the day, but when it got cold, they said, okay, let's put down the BS and let's stay warm because it's all about survival, making it through the winter. And I think that's the case here. We shouldn't necessarily stand on an island by ourselves and not necessarily communicate. So I'm totally open to reasonable partnerships that are in place, and we're going to be talking about one of those tonight with your company, Adam. So I don't think we're just sitting down and just sitting on our hands and waiting for opportunity to come to us. We're creating opportunity. So that's one of the things that we're moving forward on as well. But yes, I'm open to a variety of projects. Just hit me in the inbox. And there are a few people who have already done that. And we've had some conversations. There's a guy from Canada, I can't recall his name. We had about an hour and a half conversation about putting ATMs in Canada within his city for the cannabis industry, because a lot of the distributors having issues with cash, and cryptocurrency and ATM, the point of sale devices, fit nicely within that space. So we've had some conversations around getting those ATMs in place within the cannabis industry. So totally open. So
yeah, and I just all right, I'm getting a reminder to not forget something that I already forgot, so I'm going to scroll back up to that. But just to close that up, Mr. Ice Lord Life there, just do me a favor and get some links to me, and I'll review and help Damon take a look at that, because it can only help us. And to touch on the partnership side of things, I'm also talking, and Damon, this is going to be news to you too as well, but I'm talking with the guys over at SatC, the Satoshi World, about some of their projects and getting LPC included in that if possible. So yeah, lots of reaching out rather, not branching.
sure.
All right, so what do you have next on the docket while I scroll through the chat and grab some of these questions?
There's ATM software hardware update.
Yes, and so that was scheduled to happen end of last month, correct?
It's scheduled to happen end of last month. We had some issues, and actually same thing on CoinLogic's side as well. With the test and integration, they communicated to me it was this week that their rollout has been pushed to the 10th or 11th. I think it's the 11th of February. So the rollout for Gladiator and software update on the 11th of February. And I know with the fix that we had in place has kind of delayed me as well when we talk about Xchainz. But I'll show you guys where I am, because I want to be open and transparent in terms of where the project is. But in terms of the CoinLogic software rollout, that rollout is scheduled to happen on the 11th. Also with the hardware rollout as well. But yet it's still the case that you can order in order to make, because it's going to take 30 to 45 days from the purchase in order to actually receive the Gladiator ATM.
Okay, so the software update is moving forward. It was delayed, but it's still happening.
Yes, it's still happening.
Okay, and so there's a lot of stuff geopolitically going on in Venezuela right now. So this whole big push into Venezuela with these awesome new ATMs that was going to be this big thing that was going to anyway, so there's been a lot of things that have become speed bumps that are both in and out of our control. And what is in our control, we are working to control and handle. But things like that, I mean, we can't control Putin or Trump or what's going on down with Maduro and any of that. So that's having an effect as well. Is what
Yeah, yeah, and just to mention on that, for most of you may not know about the Quedeta or the coup that supposedly happened by, I think it was the leader of the assembly, Guaido, who appointed himself as the leader of new president or interim president of Venezuela. The the community, when the Venezuelan government attempted to withdraw, I think it was like almost 2 billion in gold. The Bank of England like froze that gold and said, "No, you're not. You can't give any of it." So that kind of like put a damper on things and said, "Hey, they'll turn it over to Guaido once Maduro made um, had put it open that they would have fair, free elections." But at this point, I think our interest is more so on the people of the country, and having the relationship that we have where Coin Logic is putting with the partnership that they have with the banks, to be able to put ATMs on the ground. That was one of the initial things that was mentioned during the collaboration event in December. So at that point, given the turmoil that's happening, in terms of community, where the army is still siding with Maduro, there are certain countries that are still recognizing Maduro as the president of Venezuela. There are other countries like the U.S. who is like backing Guaido and see him as a legitimate leader of the country. But then that's actually causing some issues, particularly in the implementation, because people are hungry, people are starving. So it's one of the things. How this plays out over the next year, who knows? It may end up turning into a civil war, even though some folks, which however crazy it might sound, have talked about like potential like civil war in that country. But it's the position that we're still looking to help the people in providing cryptocurrencies as a viable option for them to survive and be able to use it within businesses in the country. So I think that should happen independent of who subsequently comes out on top as the leader of that particular, or president of that particular country.
Yeah, so it's a mess.
Yeah.
So I was reminded to ask you a question that has nothing to do with Venezuela, so this is a change in topic. We can circle back on whatever as questions come in. So LPC had a pool of pre-mined coins that was used for exchanges and whatnot, and LPC has used up a lot of that in promotions and getting listed here and there and just building what we have now. So I know that things are tight and you've been digging deep in order to get things done. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel as far as funding goes? Have you started reaching out? Have you gotten any answers?
Sure. And I can give you guys an update in terms of the action that we've taken in that particular space. There are a few crypto family offices and funds that are, if you think about Galaxy in terms of what they're doing in this space and saying, hey, now they're raising the fund to help promising projects. There have been some other family funds as well, who are doing the same thing to help projects that are actually promising projects that are moving forward in this space. And we actually got an invite to have a conversation, and we started just an initial meeting, nothing official just yet in terms of, say, like MOUs or say equity splits, things like that. But we've started that conversation with a family office. I don't want to reveal anything here in terms of like identifying who they are, but
Sure.
I can tell you there are the people who are involved. Um, they've done some fascinating things in the space, being involved in some very, very early projects. And based on my interaction that I had with them, like it was this past week, it was a very friendly interaction. They love what we're doing in the space, particularly as it relates to our ATM machines, and the also some of the work around some of the credentials on blockchain, what we're able to do with some of our proof of concepts, and what we're pushing forward on in the content technology space with our partners with Vinch, with Lumina and their customer base. So we just had some very basic conversations about who we are, what we do, where we're located, the people we have in various spaces, like Colin in Shanghai, um, as well as the team in Eastern Europe that's doing some of the coding with Vlad and Brenimir, and also the work that we're doing here with universities, University of Central Florida, also with some other universities that just recently approached us to have conversations, such as University of North Texas at Dallas, within their logistics and supply chain, professors wanting to put forth proposals to various government agencies to actually investigate blockchain within government. So um, we had conversations around what we're currently doing, what we've done, and actually where we're going in the next year or couple years in place. So like right now, our main push is getting the point of sale devices out, the ATMs out as well, pushing out on Xchainz, doing the integrations with some of the partners in place, and some of the prospective like universities that we've had conversations with about putting their digital assets on our digital credentials, such as degrees, certification, on our blockchain. We had an initial meeting, just to backtrack, almost 2 weeks ago, where we demonstrated having assets on blockchain. I think I presented a couple of credentials, just like a fake dummy credential, on a couple calls. But there was one university, decentralized by design, that was very interested in terms of what we were able to demonstrate. And they welcomed us back for a larger meeting with a larger group, not only to do credentials, but also just tracking and tracing the learning process for individuals going through their degree programs. So being able to actually have a digital record of someone completing a degree, taking a course, completing an assessment, gaining some level of skill, and having access to, say, a level of competency or a micro credential as they're progressing through their degree program.
Can I mean, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but as a former college student, that right there sounds really interesting, because college transcripts are a pain in the butt to deal with, because if I want mine, I don't only have to go on a website where I don't remember any of my credentials and talk to people that are new people in that office that I've never talked to before because it's been darn near a decade or whatever. So if that information were on the blockchain where it was distributed and anyone could access it that had the right credentials, then I wouldn't have to pay my old school $20 every time I want to send a transcript somewhere. It would just be there.
Yeah, and that was the case. I hate to put Colin on blast, but he actually went through this within the past few months, having to show his credentials, and he wanted $45. My alma mater, his alma mater, Howard University, wanted $45 for his transcripts. So, and that's something that shouldn't happen. You spend all that money to get your degree, and you know how you have to pay more money just to get a copy of like what you've done. So they were interested when I mentioned the family office. The family office was definitely interested in what we're doing in our core in fintech, but also some of the ancillary products and services that we're able to provide through Xchainz as well. So that conversation is still ongoing. our first meeting was a very good meeting, so they could understand who we are, what we're doing in the space, and what our community is like as well. And perhaps they may even be on the call, and I'll just say, hey, what's up, guys? I do appreciate you joining the call. Um, so at this point, um, that's what I can say. Yes, we are moving down the path where there are family offices who are interested in having conversations with us about moving our project forward, particularly in terms of accelerating the growth of the ATM network.
Okay, awesome. So you can't say yet where you are from A to B in getting VC funding or people to throw money at you, but it is being explored and you are making positive steps.
Yes, that's what I can say.
Okay. Uh, topics,
And
topics.
just to give you guys some insight, so I'm not necessarily someone who's like new to this. I've raised money before. I've gotten venture capital funding before in building businesses. So everyone from like my last venture was a joint venture. It's funded by Lumina Datamatics in terms of building out on the next generation of learning products using AI systems. It was a case that I did get some funding from Dan Gilbert, the president of the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and building out assessment tools for prospect selection in the NBA. Um,
Hmm.
so which like currently still in use. So it's the case that this is like I'm not necessarily new to the game, so it's something that I'm able to do, but it's looking at the right kind of partners because here's what you don't necessarily want for someone to or some entity to come into our community or come in to like the managing entity and be able to guide the project where somewhere it shouldn't go or which is not necessarily consistent with where we want to go as a community because like I love that you guys are vocal and you're telling me when things are right, you're telling me when things are off, and we need that as a community to keep us on the right track.
Agreed.
So that's something that I don't think we should ever put ourselves in a position where we get into a relationship with an entity that's not necessarily their vision is not consistent with what we're looking to do.
Right. The
So
only way that we can get from where we are to success is with one vision.
sure, and at the same time, we don't necessarily want like individuals who are not sophisticated in the space to understand what we're doing in building out our technology, um, and just say just solely focus on the fintech aspect, our vision on how we should execute. Does it make sense to go into, say, South America and focus solely on South America, or does it make sense to focus solely on Africa, on the continent of Africa and countries within the same? So we want to have a consistent vision and a partner. So that it's really a two-way street, and that's balancing that process.
Right. I'm scrolling back up, trying to find some questions that we haven't touched on yet.
Yeah, I know Ava asked the question of basically when did I meet Vlad? So it
Yes.
was so this is early part of 2017. So it was a case that a lot of us, so going original set of members on the team, we were investing from project to project, and it was something like I mentioned earlier, and a variety of different stories that have been published. It's a consistent story that we have here where we were the members we would actually I would invest in a variety of machines, and sometimes in this what I would call in this space it was more like uh, crypto coin surfing. As a new project would come, you would see it, and being very new to the space, it was a point that we would I'd ride one project, and then next thing you know, as certain members come into the community, it's like, hey, I seen you all around another project, and then next thing you know, we begin to exchange names and have some conversations, and it's at the point it's like, hey man, I'm tired of doing this, so let's develop a project that we all could invest in for the long term. So it was at the point we all got together and started Light Coin, ended up assigning some tasks for some members of the team. Originally, like starting writing the white paper, some members of the team starting a website, some members of the team going through the process of like building some or identifying where we could build some relationships in the space. So that's where I initially met Vlad and a variety of different. I didn't know all the members coming on to the team, so it was the case. That's when we first met.
Okay. Yeah. So you guys, the first project that you worked on together is LPC, correct?
Yes, yes,
And
that's actually
that was your vision, their talent.
a combination of everybody. Because like it was a case. I have programming talent as well, but I don't code like 100% of the time in C plus plus.
Right.
But
I
I
wasn't trying to say
yeah,
that you didn't give any code to the team or anything.
sure.
So the vision of LPC comes from your vision for Xchainz, correct?
Yes, and a combination of, well, really a combination of all, because we recognize what were the needs of the cryptocurrency space, looking at adoption, and when we subsequently formed Xchainz, it was totally consistent with the vision of LPC. How do we get larger adoption across the cryptocurrency space? How do we bring this to the everyday user? And I think if you read the article, the UCF article as well, where we talk about that too. Older people aren't using cryptocurrency, and there's a reason why. Technology sucks. Like there's some older people today who still don't use ATM machines, um, because it's all about technology adoption, and that's one of the things that we wanted to encourage. And subsequently, we built out LPC to be consistent with that vision.
Okay. Now you when you said we built Xchainz, is that you and the others? Who owns Xchainz?
Sure. Xchainz, that's owned by Dr. Larry Davis and myself. We both, and Larry's been mostly in the background in terms of building out this project. We both are what we call McKnight Doctoral Fellows out of the University of Central Florida. We both graduated from UCF, but the McKnight Doctoral Fellows was a program started by a family friend, um, to increase the number of members of underrepresented groups who could teach and who could do research, who could actually build companies in various spaces. So there's underrepresentation in technology, underrepresentation in law. So Dr. Davis and myself, we were two individuals who came out of McKnight Doctoral Fellows program. So, and we are the owners of that organization, which is the legal entity that manages the activities of listing on exchanges for LPC and LGS.
Right. So as far as Xchainz is concerned, you handle all the lawyering stuff, and it's just you and Mr. Larry David, and that's it.
Yes.
And as far as LPC is concerned, it's you and Vlad and these two other gentlemen, correct?
Branimir. There's Colin as well, and
Yes.
Colin has a legal entity within China itself. So his entity is responsible for anything that's happening within Asia Pacific that I'm not able to actually sign off on because I'm not in country.
Right.
So, and it's the case that when there are like conversations that happen, Colin, he invites me to various phone calls that he has. Sometimes I'll sit on those calls, and sometimes I won't because like it's in the middle of the night for
Right.
him. He's up during the daytime in China having those conversations in Shanghai. So, and I think also as well, Jay. I'm not quite sure on his legal entities, but he's gone to conferences on behalf of LPC. So there are members in various countries, as here within the United States, and Xchainz being a representative here in like the West, representing the interests of LPC, and Colin within Shanghai, representing the interests in the East, with his entity as well. I'm going to do a quick pause and plug in my battery because it's
Okay, yeah, that's kind of important.
next month.
Yeah. So I'll practice my gift of the gab now. So guys, just what we were just talking about, just to outline for you exactly what Xchainz is, who's in charge there, who's involved in LPC. It's all very clear. I mean, we're trying to make it clear is what I'm saying. So there shouldn't be any question as far as who has authority over what. And to go into that more, LPC, as far as the code itself as it exists, the code that has whatever hashes in it that's running that is required to be able to be accepted in exchanges and everything, that code, the credentials for accessing it, who has those credentials?
Sure. So it's the case that you can look in any of the, you can look at on the repository itself, and it would tell you who the owner of the repository is. So Vlad is the owner of the open source repository of LightPay coin, which at the same time, it doesn't prevent anyone from doing a fork. Why? Because it's open source.
Right.
So it's the case, any other pushes and pulls that are happening within this community that we have with LPC and LGS, it's the case that Vlad actually has the rights to make pulls and pushes within that repository. And I think I gave a description of that maybe a few videos ago, probably maybe 5 or 10. I know we have about 40 of them, but I recall mentioning this before. But if you have any questions about Xchainz itself, which looks like this is like what this call is turning out to be, you can read up on Xchainz here, or this particular question is about, and here's everything that we're done and everything that we're looking to do in this space. I don't know if you all have seen the article, but feel free to jump in and take a look. It's on Steemit.
I do believe that you showed this last time as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so just feel free, to ask about Xchainz, what we're doing, because it's the case we can't get on exchanges unless we're signing like some NDAs, and then they're asking, most of these exchanges are asking for several things. One is like a legal opinion, which we do have. Two, and we had to get that through Xchainz. Two, they're asking for like non-disclosure agreements, and it would need to be a legal entity recognized by a sovereign country in order to engage in some interactions with an exchange. So that's the thing that we need to go through.
Right. So as far as all the partnerships, all the exchanges, all the boots on the ground hard work, it's all been done through Xchainz, correct?
Yes. No, let me pause. I know Colin he's executed some agreements within AP, Asia Pacific.
Right, okay.
So I can't speak on all of those, but I know for the vast majority, it's been through Xchainz. So if SEC is coming after us at the end of the day, they're first going to touch base with me, because it's the case that we're the legal entity representing LPC and LGS.
Right. So as far as skin in the game and any sort of actual legal responsibility is concerned, Xchainz is the only one that is representing LPC with any sort of authority, correct?
Yes.
But Xchainz doesn't have access to the code, right?
Say again? No, we do have access to the code. I have access to the code. If you go back to we can do this.
We can fork it, and we can look at it and essentially download it and everything, but we don't have control over what gets added into the LPC code base, correct?
Unless it goes through a review. The process that typically takes place, almost with any project,
right,
is that there's an owner, and then the owner will usually have, like, there will be a reviewer, and that reviewer would typically sign off, and the code would be pushed. But that's based upon like a code review process. So
right,
the way that process typically works is internal development. Right on your local box, you push to a staging server. You'll test on that staging server or on the test net. And then if there are any fixes that need to be made, you'll come back to your local environment, and then you push it back up again, test on testnet, and then you do a push. And once you do your push to your branch from the repository, then you would do a pull request for individuals who own the repository. And this is almost in any project, individuals who own the repository, and then you identify them as a reviewer, as in the case of what I did earlier. where I showed you earlier, where there's someone that you would identify as a reviewer who would subsequently look through the code, say whether or not it's good or bad code, and then integrate it into the code base. And that's the same process that works for almost any open source project, albeit if it's Bitcoin or it's Litecoin, that's typically the case.
Okay, so as
I agree, Eric.
yeah, so as far as the GitHub is concerned, what do you think the chances are that if asked, Vlad would simply say, "Yeah, sure, you want control here it is."
Sure. So now the question becomes an issue of managing a code base. And I think we talked about that. I think we talked about that earlier as well, being able to go through and look and dealing with the option of having to manage a code base. And that's something that's not necessarily easy and something that could be done, but it's somewhat difficult to do.
Sure.
Given the skill set that we have within the community. I'll tell you right now, I'm not the high speed low drag in C++. I'm novice to intermediate on the high side. So I can understand the code, but it's the one thing that I do run into issues after making compiles and actually identifying some errors in the code, making some fixes to the code. But I'm able to understand the logic. I'm able to understand the syntax. So it's the case that I could do some of that work, but it's the case I can't do all of the work. So that's why it would definitely take a team to be able to manage that process.
Right.
So and Ava, please take ownership. So making the request, and that's one person making the request. So it looks like y'all are.
They've been yelling at me, Damon.
Implicitly saying, okay, take total control of the repository.
So I don't want you, Damon. I do not want you to have that burden on your shoulders. I'm simply asking, is it reasonable to even entertain the idea that maybe he might relinquish the code base? But moving on from that,
it's possible. It's totally possible.
Right. Okay. So so we have people saying, hey, I'll chip in. So I'm a software engineer. It's what I do every day. I know people. I know C++ developers. Finding the developers is not going to be the issue. Paying them is going to be the issue. So moving on from that, even if we were able to get the code and control of the code, what's to stop someone else from forking? Like, what is it about the GitHub repository that is so important to Xchainz? Like, why can't we just fork and say, everybody, here's the new blockchain, plug this into your wallet?
Okay, so there would definitely need to be coordination on our side. So it looks like there's a subtle coup d'etat happening within our community.
I'm not saying, I'm just talking in hypotheticals based on what people have been telling me. I'm not suggesting anything, Damon. I'm just walking through what I agreed to talk to you about based on what people talk to me about.
Sure. So it's one of the things where there would need to be coordination of who would serve the various functions within the decentralized organization, because that's what this is. So there would need to be a set of individuals who say, okay, I'll be responsible for managing the code base. There'll be another set of individuals who say, okay, I'll sit, because at the end of the day, that repository is just a database.
Right. It's just a file on a server.
Yes. So just think about it like this, guys. And it's a new type of database, one that we've never experienced before in the history of man. So it's one of the things, who's going to do the database management and actually keep the code in sync, patch fixes if they need to be fixed. That's one part. But then there's the building of the business around the database. It's an open source database, but then it's just like when you talk about MySQL. So you're going to have someone who come in who manages the MySQL database. Like I said, I can do some things, but I can't do everything. So there still needs to be somebody who's building some middleware, say building, say a front end of a website, being able to interact with the middleware and interact with the database. So that's what Xchainz is doing in building some of that front end, building some of that middleware to interact with the database. So there would need to be coordination on various fronts of building out the technology first, then coordinating, creating some either some partnerships or relationships. If we can't do it, bringing in other individuals to help us in that process, and then also building a business around it.
Yep. So I have a technical question, Damon, because I'm not quite sure I fully understand it being a developer, simply because this isn't what I went to school for. With the blockchain, we have LPC, we have this distributed network, and we saw this with the Bitcoin and the Bitcoin Cash fork. Can someone fork the coin right now, and then, like, say I wanted to, say I forked the LPC blockchain, and I told all my friends, hey, here's my fork, don't use that fork anymore. Can we just do that? Can someone just fork it and then just like slide everybody onto this new fork?
That could be done, but there would need to be some coordination.
Right, because then you have the issues with the chains not agreeing, and you end up with the split. So yes.
So yeah, and what I mentioned earlier, let's go back and we can look at the repository to see how many times it's been forked. So it's the case that if you went on and you looked at LPC, you went to the LPC project, you can see right now it's been forked 32 times already in 8 months. So there are other projects that currently exist where they've already forked the code base.
And we only know of 4 potentials, three other potentials. We don't know of any others, right? We're not aware of them.
What do you mean?
Oh, I'm alluding to the other 3 coins. LGS was not LGS forked from LPC as well as LRM.
I'm not quite sure.
Okay, I was just making assumptions.
I think it was PivX. So I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, so
but there have been 32 forks.
So I could conceivably make my own fork and announce a mutiny, right?
It doesn't have to be a mutiny. You can
No,
just say
I'm speaking purely hypothetical, Damon. I love you. I love this community. I'm not looking to anyway. Okay.
Sure. And like I said, if anyone who has the technical chops and both the business chops to put together the business model, build the relationships, do some of the sales, do some of the marketing, actually maintain the technology, anyone is open to do it.
Okay, so along those lines, you talked about the possibilities of funding. If you were to get funding, would you want to bring people on officially into the Xchainz fold to work on the LPC blockchain and the Xchainz feature stack full time?
Sure, and I put the proposal together, and I do see a question. I say this webinar seems to be skirting around the issue.
So Allscript, he's talking about he wants flat out, right? So there's a bunch of people that are saying, look, I don't want my investment to continue to be affected by one person, and we've got some concerned investors that they say they're holding a lot of coins, and I mean that's not holding a gun to our heads, but and I'm not trying to say anyone's giving us those kinds of ultimatums, but people are getting concerned, people are voicing their opinions.
Yeah, and I've heard this as well. So once again, it's to be open, it's to be transparent, and Allscript. Yeah, if you mention that's a concern, so let's begin to have a conversation. How many people we've made the proposal? So even though LPC is a decentralized organization. So being that is a decentralized organization, if anyone would like to put together a proposal and talk about it, let's put it on the table. So let's have a conversation about it. I won't beat around the bush. Anytime there are teams, and let's just put it out there, teams don't agree 100% of the time. Team
Right.
members don't agree 100% of the time. If you had 100% consensus on every single issue and not necessarily debate concerns in a professional and rational way, you know, that's not the way to go. So it's one of the things that we should be in a position where we put it out all on the table and have an honest discussion.
Okay, so people are saying let's have an honest discussion and vote. I don't think we need to vote as a community. I think the community, I think it's clear what they want, and it's up to you, Damon, on based on what you want to do moving forward. I'm all for making sure that we cross the I's and dot the T's and be professional, and make sure that no one uh
dot the I's, cross the T's. Yeah.
no,
No, I got you. No issue.
I don't know what you're writing.
No,
But we need to make sure. I know. I don't tell me what I know. We need to make sure that no one's reputation is improperly besmirched based on anyone's actions before knowing the full story. So we need to make sure that we do our due diligence as a community, and of course you as the person that runs this project need to make sure that you do your due diligence as a business person. I understand that. I think a lot of the community understands that, but at the end of the day, like Allscript is asking over there, do you trust Vlad?
So in building out the LPC project in our original conception, I trust Vlad in that respect.
Sorry, I'm reading through the channel real quick. Yeah, I want to make sure that, and you guys, if you listen to me in the Discord at all, if we've talked before at all, I'm not about putting anyone down. I'm about supporting the community. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm talking to Damon right now. I'm trying to be your voice here. So at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that the money that we invested and the time that we've invested in this project shows us something eventually, even if that's just not losing money, So to that end, they're voicing their concerns. So let's keep the dialogue open over the next week, I say, and see how the patch for the PIVX stuff comes out, and maybe this time next week or our next webinar we can go into more depth about that. Does that work for all of you?
Yeah, and I do see a question. Am I happy with the current state of affairs? No, I'm not happy with the current state of affairs. If it's the case that you submit some code and you'd like to have it reviewed and like to have it tested, it should be reviewed and tested. So even if it's wrong, it should be a rational explanation as to why it's wrong. So, and that's a part of any process, and that's why it's a process that's set up that everyone knows and most people know. So anytime that there's a submission of code, there should be at least a preliminary review. And then there should be some subsequent tests as to why that code is not in place. So am I happy? No, I'm not happy. Do I want the code reviewed? Yes, I want it reviewed. Do I want the community to have some security around their particular investments? Yes, I do. Do I like the speed at which things are being done? No, I'll actually say, oh, hell no. But it's the case that we have a process. They should follow the process. I think at the same time, Vlad, I do consider him as a friend. I do consider him as someone who's been helping to get the project in terms of where it is. But I am concerned, just like you guys are. So I want things fixed. I'm not happy. I'm not ecstatic. No, as a matter of fact, it's one of the things where putting things on the table for them to be reviewed, for them to be done, I want it to be done. So I don't want to drag this on anymore. I voiced my concern. I want you guys to voice your concern. you want it fixed. And at the same time, somebody mentioned Vlad's not here to defend himself. If it's the case that you would like to have him on a call, not necessarily on a call, but have him write a response where somebody is able to do a translation and actually have him put it out in writing. Let's put that out on the table. No, English is not his first language. His English has improved drastically since participating in the project. So we want to put that, yeah, and you're right, Chris. You have to put friendship aside. Friends, if you over sometimes, it's how life is. I want this to work, and I'm quite sure the community's here. We wouldn't have 25 people on the call watching right now if it's the case that you guys didn't care.
Right.
And I wouldn't be here at what time is it? 9:30 having a discussion if I didn't care at all.
Right. And as you guys saw, my daughter just poked in asking to be brought to bed. So, like, I care. I'm here.
Yeah.
We all care.
So you can translate it live. That's Chris Zierens.
Oh, nice.
So that's cool.
Yeah. We're already an hour and a half into this. I think that we should look towards the end, Damon, just because I'm exhausted. So I lost my train of thought.
You guys want to have another call tomorrow so you can get.
I just want to talk some more about a few things. We've got the new website, right? I wanted to mention that. That's due to be rolled out soon, right?
Yeah. So you're talking about the LPC site.
Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah. So
yeah.
We've got one of our brand ambassadors, John. He goes by the pseudonym Rog Lobster. I don't know why. Maybe there's lobsters down there. You should tell us sometime, buddy. But he and his team, he's got a team of guys. He has his own company down in Venezuela, and they've been working hard on pushing this website out. So, Adam for president. Yeah, okay. Yeah, yes. I don't want any of this current mess. Thanks.
And maybe we should just rotate roles just for a little bit. I'm open for suggestions. And Adam's like, silence. I got it.
I'm not building any wall. I don't want a wall. I want bridges. Bring us closer, not further apart. Damn it. Okay, so we were going to talk about the 100 Partners program.
Yeah, we were. That's your project. Basically, if you want to talk a little bit about your company and.
Well, so we've already got the screen set up. Do you mind bringing up the website real quick? I'll dictate for you. WYNN. There you go.
That's here, WynnqTeq.
Well, it's definitely not Las Vegas, yeah. So, my whole life, right, I've always been wanting to do something on my own as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. And it's always been something in the back of my head, going through school. I became a developer. And not because this is something that I want to do as business, but because I love doing it. So people have been asking me left and right, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? So I decided, hey, I might as well go freelance. So I'm working on going freelance full time. This is WynnqTeq. So
just to give a little background, this is the first of the 100 Partners programs for 2019. So he's introducing his company and how it's pushing forward LPC and beginning to do some integrations as well. So I just wanted to give some background.
Right. So what I'm doing is I've got a couple of actual partnerships myself with another company that my friend owns. We're building some software off on the side with some projects that we're building that aren't necessarily crypto related. But what I'm doing with WynnqTeq myself, my first project for LPC is going to be building that payment portal for LPC for anything from, let's say, browser plugins to websites to Discord bots to whatever, so that you can set it up and you can do payments and transactions using this portal, so that maybe I could build an Amazon plugin for Chrome so that you can just push a button and spend your LPC to buy that new flashy thing instead of dollars, and it all happens seamlessly. So that's going to be our first project, utilizing LPC. I'm also working on branching that out to possibly some other coins maybe in the future, but LPC is our first drive for that, and we're also going to be bringing LPC into all of our other projects. We've got a couple of applications that we're working on building that are going to have not just payment options using crypto, LPC specifically, but we also want to bring the whole documents on the blockchain stuff into that as well.
Sure. And I know we've had some conversations as well, and there were people who approached me within the Dallas-Fort Worth area, companies, and I immediately turned them over. And I know Adam has had some conversations about doing some integrations for them. So I think that's a positive move, and it's our first official partner coming on, WynnqTeq.
WynnqTeq. So Wynn is my middle name. Tech is because tech is cool, and the Q makes me original, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. It sounded buzzy enough, and it's got a nice zing to it. It's marketing, whatever. It sounds cool.
Yeah, and I like it.
Okay.
So it's one of the things that we'll continue to like profile like some of our different partners in terms of like their progress. And if you want to do a show and tell, just do a show and tell in terms of what you've built and what you've done. I think this is the platform to do it. Mondays and Fridays, those were the target days, but we also had to catch up on our weekly webinar because we missed it on Wednesday. But yet it's the case. I think having the webinar on Friday, I don't know if it might be the best idea, but we'll try it out for a few. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and then we'll switch out to a time that's consistent, works for most people's schedule.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate the fact of him coming on and talking about his company.
Yeah, so guys, keep in mind, I've got that new Discord server going. It's for you. It's for the LPC community. It was originally the brand ambassador channel that I had set up for the BAs for LPC. But I'm rebranding it for, for anything that you guys want to talk about that you don't want to talk about in the official channels or just to BS with me. But I also have my own YouTube channel that I can do these live streams on. I have all the capability, so if you want me to just pop on myself and talk at you, let me know.
Yeah, I strongly encourage it. I strongly encourage folks subscribing to his channel, going on when you have your live streams or you're just pushing up content. And that's what we need to do in order to support the community as well. And as I was mentioning earlier, with the Xchainz update was just been delayed with what's been happening. And you're welcome, Oscar. Thank you for your brutal honesty, because we need that in order to stay accountable. And just give updates in terms of where Xchainz is as well. And looking at I'll do just a quick preview in terms of where we are. So the wallets are actually in place.
Damon, your website looks better than mine.
Oh no, this is very, very simple, very, very basic. It's the case that everything's here. It works, being able to view like all the transactions that you've had in place. At the same time, XPay being able to pay out on your fees, pay out on your transaction. It's a 0.1% fee. We got to pay the bills around in this place. So it's 0.1%. It's competitive with Binance. So.
Man, that is highway robbery.
0.1%? So, and it's the case right now, think about it in terms of, and maybe I'll put something in, write some code where you have if you have a certain amount of LPC, it's like zero fees. But that's what we have in place now.
I was being facetious. I was absolutely joking.
Yeah, and I know with X rates, they charge an arm and a leg, just to put it out there. X certs, it's the case, the certifying aspect does work where you're able to only put in an email. Like in this particular case, I'm going to put in my email, try to send a message to myself, and it's probably, Gmail. You guys can then say, this is a message. And then I want to encrypt the message and put in a code. Let me see if let's see what happens here, guys. Does it crash? I don't want to save anything. You don't have an encryption public key, a fingerprint. Create one here. All right. So now what it basically says, now I have to create what you call a footprint or an encryption key with a passphrase. And I'm going to create one. Thank you. When you set your encryption key, you can have, there's some options that we built out. This is like some of the highest level encryption that you can have. You can set your expiration date, but this 0 means forever. Create your passphrase. No, I don't want to keep it. No, I don't want to save it. And then now I have a fingerprint. So this fingerprint is associated with my email that I use to register on the site. And this is what you use for your encryption. And now it's here if you want to delete it. But yet going back to what we were saying earlier, want to create a message. So I'll put my thing here. And then I want to encrypt this message. And I put the passphrase that I use to create it. Don't use the same one for your passcode in order to log on. And then it's at the point, let's encrypt that thing. So now it's the case here, when we have a nice little URL. I'm going to put in, go to another site right here. Let me post this. Oh, is this a live one? No, I don't want to do this. I want to go here. There we go. And now, if anyone got access to that content, they see this right here. Basically, they see the encrypted message. And I think that's where we are so far. But let me do this. I'm going to go out, come back in, and just create a message that you guys can see. And the message is sent to this email address saying, hey, you got a message, and let's do some JSON.
By the way, Allscript's asking about Cryptopia. Have you heard anything from them?
I haven't heard anything from Cryptopia. The last thing I heard from Cryptopia is that they got hacked again.
Oh
no.
No.
Yeah, it's like somebody...
Can't win for losing, man.
Yeah, despite the fact that they shut everything down, somebody else got in. No, it's the same address. Got in, and they took some more money out. So it's the case that Cryptopia, I think, either it's an inside job, or they just it's time to just move on to another chapter.
Yeah. That's unfortunate for everyone involved. I'm sorry, guys. Cryptopia was like, I was so happy about that when we finally got on, and I was using them every day. And then this, like, we got to find a new Cryptopia. Have we heard anything from Binance?
We haven't heard from Binance, but I can tell you we are moving on a path.
Thanks, Jim.
We are moving on a path to a new exchange. This was the JSON message that I posted from the
Awesome.
So now this is actually available. It's on IPFS. It's permanent. It's not going anywhere, and it's available. With the exchange that we're moving towards, it was based on a relationship that we built in Colombia. It's a large exchange, and what we have to do, I'll just give you the details around it. What we have to do, and our partner Lumina said, hey, they can push through with it. We have to engage or have to have an OTC option where we have to do over the counter. So that exchange said, hey, they'll list us, we'll be able to do APIs, but we have to be able to do OTC. So that's one of the options. So that we have to engage in a rate. Lumina said they'll do that footwork for us to get us through that listing. And even though with our partners with CoinLogic, it's the case that we're still in play on Binance, but we haven't heard an official no decision just yet. So there are a couple things in play where we're looking to get us onto a top, say this is top 30 exchange now, but it's the case that we'll have to do OTC, which is going to which I really I can understand why it's there, but I think in the long term it hurts the retail investor. But it's the case. That's the only option for us being able to list in this top 30 exchange. But I'll keep you guys updated as it progresses. But Lumina is actually stepping in now and doing some things that we didn't necessarily expect, but we do appreciate them taking on that role and that responsibility.
Cool. Okay. So Allscript, you're asking about LPC and LGS. I'm assuming you mean with regards to Cryptopia. From what I've heard, the only coins that were affected were ERC20 or Ethereum-based tokens, right?
Yes, it's the case. The way the hack happened, it was an exploit in some of the contracts. So that's why they were able to get access to those funds and transfer them out. So it was an exploit, really, or vulnerability in like the Ethereum, the contracts that were written for those ERC20 tokens. So that's how they were able to get those funds out. So.
Okay. So from what we know, if anyone had any LPC or any LGS on Cryptopia, it was not stolen.
Yes, from what I understand.
Right. So first rule of crypto is don't store your crypto on exchanges. I mean, if you need it to be that accessible, we have web wallets now, we have mobile wallets now. Please don't leave your funds on the exchanges, guys. It's not your pocket. It's someone else's pocket that you're putting your money in. It's great for a utility.
Yes, and even in the case with Xchainz, you can export out your private keys. So if there's any particular issue that happens, you can easily transfer those funds from one address to the next address and get it out of that wallet that's sitting on Xchainz.
Okay. But yeah, that's awesome. All right, so is there anything that we haven't covered that we should wrap up before we sign off? Because I do need to fall asleep at some point. It is almost 11 o'clock here.
Yeah, me too, guys. I'll just keep you guys updated. I do understand. Hit me up on the inbox, but I encourage you as a community, come together, be able to make a strong coalition, make comments, suggestions for the leadership, myself, Vlad, other members of the team, to do the thing, to do the right thing. Have us be accountable and constantly communicate. That's the only way we're going to get through this.
Right. So, like you've probably heard earlier, and if you haven't, ask me about it on the Discord. I've got this community channel set up. I'm going to be doing a lot of my communication there, as well as the other channels and whatnot. So feel free to pop in. It's a good place to just chat frankly and whatnot. I'm not going anywhere though, guys. I'm not leaving the other channel. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, same thing about Hans Pitcher. He asked about Bittrex. Bittrex, they when we first submitted the application, they basically said that they like what we're doing, and they wanted us to come back in 3 to 6 months. They just wanted to see us for progress on our roadmap. So we're 1 month in.
All right.
All right, guys. Definitely thanks for the call. Sorry it was long.
Yeah. And guys, if you have any ideas for ways that we can communicate between, us, the community, with us, LPC, let us know, please, because we want to communicate. I've got a wiki started. Let's start trying to figure out how to do that. I'm gonna do up some bullet points for this webinar on there. So yeah, give us your ideas. We want this to be a community, a strong community, and a strong project.
And thanks for keeping us accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Damon, you want me to hit the switch?
Yes, sir.
All right.
You guys.
Love to you all.
Peace.